Now, Albuquerque voters are being asked this year to decide whether to approve a proposed ordinance that would require employees in the state's largest city to be able to accrue sick leave. The ballot measure has been controversial, as you probably know. Correspondent Megan Kamerick sat down this week with a supporter and an opponent to discuss what the sick leave ordinance would mean for workers, business owners, and other residents.
Here with me today to discuss the arguments for and against the Healthy Workforce proposal is Elizabeth Wagoner. She is an attorney with the New Mexico Center on Law and Poverty, and Pat Rogers, an attorney representing the New Mexico Association of Commerce and Industry and NAIOP, which represents commercial developers. So Elizabeth, why push for this ordinance now at a local level rather than a state level?
Well, Albuquerque workers currently lack the right to earn sick leave at work. And so what this ordinance would do is ensure that workers in Albuquerque no longer have to choose between a paycheck and taking care of a sick family member or recovering from illness. It provides that workers can earn 1 hour of sick leave for every 30 hours they work, and then would allow workers to take that earned sick leave 5 days in small businesses and 7 days in large businesses. It would also ensure that women who are escaping domestic violence situations can take earned leave in order to do that.
So this is all businesses that have a presence in Albuquerque?
That's right. It would cover businesses with a physical premises in Albuquerque, so for-profit businesses or nonprofits.
Okay. What about, but not state entities or tribal entities? Correct?
That's right. No, you couldn't have a city ordinance against those entities.
Okay. So employers are concerned right now that they're going to have to change their policies, and the ordinance leaves them open to lawsuits. And some employers have paid time off policies where they combine vacation and sick leave, and it's up to you how you take it. Won't they now have to create specific sick leave policies?
No, I'm really glad you asked me about that, because this is a common misconception that's been put out there by the political opposition to try to get voters to vote against the ordinance. The truth is that paid time off policies do not have to change at all. When employers offer, for example, paid time off that you can take for any reason, employers do not have to offer separate sick time, as long as they're offering at least those 5 days or 7 days if it's a business with more than 40 employees. Then there is no need to change a thing. There's no need to track sick time separately. The policy stays the same. And it's really just kind of a fear-mongering tactic that we're seeing from the business interests that just don't want people to get sick time at all.
Pat Rogers, our city has a lot of workers who they just can't afford to take unpaid days off, so they might come to work sick or leave sick kids at home. Doesn't it make sense to give them some kind of safety net?
Well, sick leave is something that's supported by everyone. This particular sick leave ordinance shouldn't be supported by any employee or employer. The devil's in the details, or in this instance, the details are the devil. This is the most extreme and onerous version of this provision that's being pushed nationwide by union and trial lawyer interests. This will be a job and opportunity killer for our city. Denver rejected a weak sister version of this a few years ago. We're in an international, or at least a national, competitive situation. Denver is booming now. Albuquerque is struggling. Denver rejected a mild version of this years ago. We can't afford an ordinance that penalizes small businesses, charities, and so on. This was drafted in the dark without any input by any business interest to explain why this wouldn't be workable. With regard to PTO, time off, there is not a single policy, PTO, in existence that will comply with this. And the reason is because of the very expansive definitions of family members that's provided here. This ordinance is more extreme and more onerous than Berkeley, California, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., Chicago, or any city in America.
What is the alternative? You said that everyone supports sick leave, so what's the alternative?
Well, the alternative is to have the elected officials, the city council and the mayor, address sick leave. And the alternative is to have public meetings and public discourse and input to address the obvious flaws and probably intended flaws that permeate this whole document.
So, Elizabeth, I want to follow up with you on some of the details that he mentioned that people are finding problematic. For instance, one of them is if an employer fires a worker within 90 days of the employee taking sick leave, that could be considered retaliation. And he brought up the expanded definition of family members. Are these things negotiable in terms of this ordinance? What do you think about these concerns people have?
So these provisions are completely standard in the earned sick days laws that have passed all over the country. So Arizona, for example, recently passed a statewide earned sick days law that contains these exact same provisions, the same provision in
Whole state passed
the
it.
whole state passed it, right. So this idea that there's something unusual or extreme about these provisions just is completely fabricated, because these provisions are exactly the same in Arizona's law in terms of the protections for employees who take sick leave to ensure that employees won't be fired for taking sick leave, in terms of the definition of family member that recognizes that people have a broad range of family caregiving responsibilities, and there shouldn't be a dispute that your foster child, for example, is somebody that you should be able to take sick leave to care for if that child gets sick. And so in terms of the retaliation provisions, it is important to ensure that, if a mom has to stay home to take care of her child when her child gets sick, that her employer can't fire her for doing that because she has caregiving responsibilities. And so this ordinance ensures that if an employer fires an employee within 90 days of that person taking sick leave, then the employer has to give a reason for the termination. And as long as the reason for the termination doesn't relate to sick leave, then the employee would have to prove that that reason was not true, which mirrors how those types of allegations in employment cases happen in any type of case, and is exactly the same as Arizona's law.
Can I ask you about one provision also requires employers who ask employees to bring a doctor's note to pay the cost of those medical appointments? Why include that?
So that's actually not quite what it says. What that provision says is that if an employer requires an employee to provide medical documentation of an illness to justify being out of work, then the employee would have to pay any out-of-pocket expenses associated with obtaining that documentation. So employers, can choose to require documentation or not. So if an employer doesn't require that, then obviously the employee pays himself for any medical treatment that he gets for his illness. But if the employer requires documentation, if there's out-of-pocket expenses associated with that, particularly important for workers who don't have health insurance, then the employer would cover that.
Pat, you and other opponents have argued that this makes Albuquerque less competitive, as you said, but a number of other municipalities and states, as we heard Arizona including, have passed similar ordinances. So wouldn't this put us in line with emerging trends in other places and make us attractive to workers?
Well, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but they're not entitled to their own set of facts. Arizona's ordinance and passage is not the same as this. And the wonderful thing about comparing two statutes is that your viewers can actually do that. patrogerslaw.com/sickleave.aspx. And I've collected in a 67-page document a comparison to establish unequivocally that this is the most extreme and onerous provision in America. For example, Arizona does not have this last provision, which prevents any change whatsoever, any substantive change to fix the problems that are inherent in this 14-point document. The 67-page comparison addresses all of the extreme nature of this, including notice. There is no requirement of notice in the Albuquerque ordinance. Berkeley requires reasonable notice. San Francisco requires reasonable notice. There is no notice provision when someone wants to take off. We are in a competitive situation. This is going to kill jobs, it's going to cause businesses to leave, and it is going to hurt employees because they are going to lose opportunities for advancement. They're going to lose opportunities for jobs. This is going to harm New Mexico like nothing ever before. There's no exception, as in minimum wage in Albuquerque. There's an exception for charities. There's no exception here for nonprofits, charities, or small businesses. If this is defeated, it's not the end of sick leave. the next day any counselor can introduce a bill and some rational process with public meetings and public input so we can hear from all the stakeholders in this, not just the unions and the trial lawyers that drafted this.
Elizabeth, we're already struggling economically in Albuquerque, and small business owners say, as Pat said, we're saying this is going to have a lot of consequences, such as forcing them to cut back staff or maybe hold off on expansion plans. So what's your response to that?
Yeah, there's a couple different issues there. I think the most important is to know that a number of other cities and states that have passed earned sick days laws, just like this one, there have been economic impact studies on exactly this issue. All of the economic impact studies show that there is no negative impact on the economy or in terms of jobs leaving. In fact, a number of the studies show a correlation between increases in job growth compared to neighboring jurisdictions that have not passed earned sick leave laws. And so this idea that there's going to be job loss just isn't borne out by the experience of any other jurisdiction that has passed an earned sick leave law. In terms of how employees use sick leave, and I think many of us already know this from our own experience with sick leave, employees treat sick leave as sort of a form of insurance policy. It's not as if you get 5 days or 7 days a year and every single employee is taking those days, and that's because you have to be sick to use them, have a qualified reason to use them, and employees know that if they've only got a certain amount, they're going to save those for when they actually need them. And so I think it's important for folks to think about how sick leave actually works in real life. It's a situation where someone actually is sick, actually has a sick child, and is actually not going to work in order to ensure that they get well and aren't passing on their disease to other people or to customers in a restaurant, patients in a hospital, that kind of thing.
So we're almost out of time. Just a final offer to you to, a final little pitch to voters as they go to the polls this weekend.
Well, I think the most important thing is to read this and understand the impact that this is going to have on our city for perhaps
It is long. We do have a link at our
generation.
website.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing, because there is nothing like this in America, and this is going to put Albuquerque employees and employers at a significant disadvantage as we compete with Denver and all of the surrounding places for jobs and opportunities for our kids and for our friends and for our families.
Okay, Elizabeth, your final argument.
Yeah, now is the time to pass sick leave in Albuquerque. This is the ordinance that has passed in other jurisdictions and that's working in other jurisdictions. It is what we need to protect our community's health, to ensure that women can escape domestic violence, to ensure that we're not transmitting disease through restaurants and hospitals. It is a great ordinance. 24,000 people signed a petition to put it on the ballot, and it's time to vote sick days into law.
Okay, thank you both for coming
Thank you.
and talking about this.
Thank you.